As a podcaster, it is possible to integrate all the different facets of your interests and your hobbies into one thing. Today, we're talking with Brittany all about how she uses her podcast to integrate her interests in wellness, health, and law, which you wouldn't think, how does that fit? But it does, I promise, into her podcast. This was such a fun and enlightening conversation, and we go deep into the needs of postpartum women and how important it is that they are getting the support they need. So if you are someone who is in that postpartum phase of your pregnancy journey, I highly recommend getting some support, whether that's with Brittany or someone else, to make sure that you are okay. All right, please join me in welcoming Brittany to the podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alesia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hello, Brittany. Super excited to have you on. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and a bit about your podcast.
Yes, my name is Brittany. I am a group fitness instructor, a business owner, a podcaster, and I own a business called Prismatic Venus Fitness, basically focusing on fitness for families. Right now, I'm primarily focusing on fitness for pregnant and postpartum parents, getting back into their journey of working out, understanding their bodies, and being mind, body, and connection throughout the pregnancy, and even the postpartum, getting back to everyday living lifestyle.
Yeah, that's so important. I can think back to, I have 2 kiddos and I had postpartum depression after the first one. And so after I was already planning after the second one, how can I incorporate movement to help with my mental wellness? Because I was like, I don't want to go through that again. But if I do, because I don't really have a choice, then how do I get through it with moving my body, with mindfulness, with all these practices? So I'm curious how you tie something that is very physical, or I guess what people consider to be very physical, into a podcast, something that is more audio or video format.
So originally the podcast started off as just a general wellness podcast of just general wellness topics that I would like to discuss. I like to say I'm a multifaceted person. So I have a bachelor's in health informatics and information management, and I'm finishing up my master's in health law. I'm a group fitness instructor, and I have 10 plus years experience working in healthcare. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to find a way to incorporate this just to give wellness stories, any additional advice. And as I went on and along with the podcast, I started developing my business. I'm just like, hey, I could utilize this as a resource for people to listen to particular episodes. So I started with smaller episodes talking about prenatal yoga moves, how breathing during certain yoga moves or just breathing during pregnancy impacts you in general. That is something really important. Even I just did one on deep breathing into your, I call it the soda can core, aka your core canister, which is your diaphragm, your transverse abdominis, and your pelvic floor, and how all that is connected to holding the baby and even postpartum. It's been interesting. Each episode is a journey on what is a part of the fitness journey for pregnant people. And I think it's very different. I think a lot of people think they can just jump back in to the regular schmegular degular exercises. I was like, you literally went through an Olympic event. Your body has changed. You've gone through a lot of things mentally. You literally are recovering from a huge, Simone Biles, a huge Olympic event. You need to recover and get back to the foundation and the basics to get back to where maybe even better than where you were originally.
So I have 2 things with that. One, it's making me think of, I tried to get back into lifting weights last week, and I really enjoy lifting weights. And 6 months, maybe more ago, I was 25 pounds for lower body, 20 for upper body. I was good. And so I had to pick up some 15s. I'm like, I got this. The next day, I was like, I can't even sit. I thought I'd be fine. I was not. So totally understand. But then having a whole human and then expecting to be no, everything's fine. I'm curious, how much of that do you think is societally in how people treat pregnancy especially societally in the US, as you're fine, go back to work. You don't need 6 weeks or more to heal your body.
I think that's why I like focusing on postpartum parents. I hosted The Climb with Postpartum Support International. So just bringing general awareness of just postpartum mental health and all those other things. And we had amazing speakers and just talking about their experience and their healthcare workers and their experience of postpartum OCD, postpartum depression. Even had a person, because we had at a park, just walking around like after like my 7th kid, like I had really bad postpartum depression.
Mm.
And as I'm doing more research, there's not a lot of studies or information. Everyone focuses on the pregnancy and getting pregnant. No one really focuses on the postpartum. And for my thesis, that's something I'm studying, is that majority of the deaths in this country happen in the postpartum period. I think everyone, which the focus should be in the hospital, but majority of it is because of mental health issues or physically not being able to move your body, and just all of those things combined, and no one's checking in. Everyone's, which they should, so focus on the baby, but you kind of don't have anything for the mom. And the mom is kind of like, my life has also changed. My body has also changed. All of these things have changed my life. And I need somebody to talk to about it. And I think there's a stigma. And I interviewed a mental health counselor, and she focuses on working Black moms. So she talked about how we put so much pressure to put that cape back on because no one else can do it but me. And that's where that detriment for a lot of women, especially Black women in parenthood, of just like, my partner can't do it the way I do it, so I'm just going to do it. Where I'm just like, you just had a C-section.
Yeah.
You should be relaxing and taking care of yourself to recover so you can come back stronger.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's definitely something I'm extremely passionate about, especially because I went through postpartum depression. And this was back in 2014. So nobody, like Chrissy Teigen hadn't talked about it yet. So nobody was talking about it. And like I had this woman that I know from my kids go to MMA, and she had a baby over the summer, and she came back and the baby's there, and she's, you want to hold him? I'm like, no. How are you? How are you doing? Like, I get it. There's a baby. Cool. Everybody probably cares. How are you? Are you okay? How was the birth? Like, because I think that's something that we, as women who understand, people who understand and have gone through birthing humans into this world, can take a moment to not just be like, oh, cute baby, but no, how are you? And her face was like, what? I don't remember the last time I showered.
You're probably the first person that's asked her how she is doing. And I think that's so unfortunate for women in society, is like, we just put the burden on our back. I'm just an afterthought. It's fine. And I think also that ties into, not in a bad way, that in just society in general, that sometimes being a mom is your only identity. And that's something where I'm on my journey to parenthood with my husband. And that's something that I'm really trying to like go into the surface, be like a little gopher of just, yes, I want to be on this journey of parenthood, but who is Brittany outside of my husband, outside of me being a mother? So as I've gone through the postpartum research and stuff for my thesis, who am I trying to get back to or be a better version of? And especially to represent for my child. I think realizing it, I do kids Zumba and stuff like that. And my husband comes from like a huge family, kind of watching kids watch you. Kids mimic what you do. And over time, they develop that as their own habits and all the things for themselves. So I was like, I want to be a good example. I may not be perfect, but I like to be a good example for my kids of, you can still have a life, you can still develop a life at home, but you can also have a life outside of these 4 walls, basically.
Yes. So true. So you mentioned that you're getting your master's in, what was it, medical law?
Yes, a master's of jurisprudence in health law.
Okay, so how does that tie into your bachelor's, as well as the work that you're doing, as well as the podcast? Like, how are you taking these bits that might feel disjointed? I don't think they are, but might feel disjointed to someone to bring like your fullness to your show?
I'm a little long-winded. Come
You're good.
Come along on the journey with me. For my bachelor's, I went to Florida A&M University. I have a bachelor's in health informatics and information management, aka medical records. So understanding the medical record, I got my bachelor's around the time where those medical records, the EHRs, the Epics, the Cerners, were all starting to become the big thing and being pushed by the government for better quality of care for patients. So that was the wheelhouse that I was in when I first graduated from FAMU in 2014. I got my first big girl job. And I was in charge of creating the workflow for the largest birthing hospital in our state to collect the data from the OB offices, whether it was a private office or the Department of Health, and get it into the medical record in a timely manner. So when the parent came in, there was no delay of care.
Right.
They can immediately get the care that they needed. Over time, I did such an amazing job. They're like, do you want a promotion? I was like, I would love a promotion. And I got promoted to the assistant manager for the birth registry department, which basically creates the birth certificates and the social security cards. I was my first big girl job. I was over 7 people. I was just like, it was the beginning of my Saturn return. I was like, yes, this is what I have worked for. I'm so excited. I got that job October 2019.
Oh, yeah.
And then the pandemic hit. And working in a hospital during the pandemic really impacted me. There was a lot of legalities because we worked with the Department of Health. We worked with Healthy Start, which is another legislation with the state that helps like healthy starts with babies after they're born, giving them like dad's free classes and stuff like that. So I got really involved in like the legal side of that house, especially during the pandemic. So I was going to go back for my master's, and I was like, I could get a master's in health administration like everybody else. But I'm an Aries. I want to be different. I want something different. So I was just like, you know what? I've always loved law, but I don't want to be a lawyer. And no shade, I don't want to do the Kim Kardashian route. So I'm just going to go get something in health law and jurisprudence, because my husband looked it up when we first started dating, is basically the breaking down of laws. So it's like reading the law, understanding it, and then bringing it to a corporation or a system, and then just breaking down, this is what's happening. This is what you need to do to stay in compliance.
Nice.
And so then in January of 2020, I started my journey to my health law degree. And it has been really integral. I've taken like a racial justice class. I've taken like someone from the National Institute of Health. I had a professor who was a chief of staff for a senator, and she was like my policy person. And so over time during the podcast, I've added segments of maternal health in the news and track that bill. So basically all these complex laws and stuff that are coming out that are just like, girl, what is this? I don't understand. I like to make the joke, utilizing this expensive master's degree of explaining to people listening on the podcast. When you go to the doctor and you realize, oh, why won't my doctor see me? I just did a segment on my last podcast about the March of Dimes report card and how it's a D+ for the 4th year in a row. And I found an article in Florida of basically breaking down the legislation of how the big, beautiful bill is going to be impacting the healthcare in this state. Yeah. And so you may not, as someone unmedicated, you may not be able to go to your regular doctor because of this law. So certain things like that, I like to utilize my knowledge to help other people. Because again, I get it. Reading the law and stuff is not fun. It is no picnic. And I can, for a short attention span, I can give me the cliff notes. I don't care about this. Just let me know. So that's where I love the podcast. I like to do segments of like, again, maternal health in the news, where I broke down the March of Dimes report card, even Cardi B and her pregnancy. Awesome. Wonderful. And how there was videos of her floating around, of her working out postpartum, and people were having conversations about that. And I broke down a segment of when is it okay for you to go back to high impact sports and all these other things, and following her on her postpartum journey as she's getting ready to go on tour and stuff like that. So utilizing my little healthcare degree, and then also as we're moving forward in the United States, social determinants of health, how that is being an integral part of healthcare, because that is also my thesis. And that's also being pushed in the healthcare system of not trying to cookie cutter healthcare, but try to individualize it so people can be treated. Because I can break my leg and then a homeless person can break their leg, but my treatment will be different because I probably can afford certain things where the homeless person may need a little bit more assistance than me. It cannot be a cookie cutter system anymore because it doesn't work that way for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. So how do you decide what segments, just for people who are listening who are like, okay, I'm a podcaster and I also would love to start like incorporating these things that are important to my listener, but maybe I don't want to do a quick Instagram story that disappears in 24 hours. I'd rather have these segments on my podcast. How do you decide what segments to do? And then how do you, or maybe you don't, tie it into the full episode?
I tie it into the full episode. I think if the episode has a theme, then picking stories and legislation that kind of ties into it. Because again, you can do anything you want to do on your podcast.
Yeah.
I am not the podcast police, but it makes sense as like a storytelling. Like, for example, with I believe it was like the core episode where we talked about Cardi B going back to working out and all of those things because it was like about core work. So I was just like getting back into high impact sports. And then we transition into, you want to get back into high impact sports? Here are some tips. This is wonderful. This is how you breathe during working out. This is what's important. This is why you need to incorporate your pelvic floor. And we end the episode. So I think tying it into a theme really helps. And for research purposes, it helps. Yeah. Because researching for a podcast, especially my podcast is very multifaceted. It can be mentally taxing. Yeah. I will not shy away that it is not mentally taxing, but I feel it is worth it because it is a resource for people to utilize. And that is what I want to give to people.
Yeah. And what a great way to navigate people towards your services as well, because I'm not just, and honestly, no shade to the people who are just fitness instructors, right? Like you're not just that. Like you are more specialized and you know a lot more about the things that are important to your specific listeners. That it's not just like, all right, let's go do Zumba together. No, you actually need these other things first. You need to be looking at these things and addressing these other things, not just your body, but your mental state as well and your network around you. Like it's the whole person rather than just, all right, let's get fit. Because
yeah. I think a lot of people tend to think of the outside will fix the inside.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I understand why you would do that because again, a lot of us are aesthetic people. I'm a Libra rising. I get it. I love aesthetics. But if you don't work on the internal, you're still not going to really like yourself if you work on the external. You're like, what? You just end up crying in your bedroom in the corner by yourself. Like, why do I feel this way? I was just like, you need to go see the lady. That is why it is okay. I have my own lady. I love her. I see her bi-weekly. So yes, sometimes you need a little extra help to talk to other people that are professionals that are going to get you on the right track, because sometimes trying to handle it yourself, you can makes your anxiety worse and depression worse, and you can spiral. And I've been on that journey of spiraling to the point where you're like hit rock bottom, and that is not easy to climb out of. I can acknowledge that myself personally.
Yeah, and what an incredible way for other Black women to see themselves reflected in the health space in a way that's caring and not just push past and keep going and you've got this, mama. No, you might not have this, and that's okay. There are resources and support for you. And even with a podcast, it's honestly one of my favorite things about podcasts is that, like, I interviewed someone, and I would have to find the episode because there's so many that we've done at this point. And I don't even remember if it was on my podcast or if I was just having a conversation with this person. But it was a few years ago, and she specifically talked about like diet culture. And she was a Black woman. And I was like, if you had your face on your cover, it would stop people. Sadly, this is the society we live in. It could stop people from listening to the message that you have. But podcasting opens the door for people who look different, who aren't the mainstream white cis hetero. Yeah, we're doing bunny ears here in quotations. Like, that aren't what we typically see in society as the leaders or the people who know the information that everybody needs. And so what an incredible way for using a podcast to be able to get your message out there, to be able to use your voice, but to speak to other Black women who probably don't have a lot of options from other Black women who are podcasters in this space.
You know what's funny? I did a podcast, this one of my first podcast episodes. What inspired me to do a fitness business and specifically focus on Black and brown women? Abby Phillip from CNN, when she was first pregnant, I followed her on Instagram, and she had a trainer and she was working out during her pregnancy. And she kept us up to date during her workouts. I'm like, I love this. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't see a lot of this. I don't see a lot of us in these spaces. And so the kind of like little light bulb in my head went off where I'm like, ooh, I like this. I want to see more of this. And again, be the change that you would like to see. So I'm like, you know what? I think after that, I was still working my corporate job. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to start my business. I'm going to pay the money. I'm going to get the stuff. And we will work from there. And I'm very happy that I took that leap. And I'm happy that I was on Instagram that day while Abby Phillip during her journey, because it really inspired me. And I'm just like, I want to do that. And I can imagine there's so many other, like you said, Black and brown women who want that experience and want that journey. And some people don't want the journey. They want the mental health aspect of it. I would love to help assist in that manner, whether it's me or getting you as the network. The network seems small, but it's big. There's so many of us that want to help people through this time in their life.
Yeah, so true. So true. And what a great way, too, to be able to showcase other people, like using your podcast as a way. I don't know if you do lots of interviews, but yes. Awesome. So using your podcast as a way to interview trusted sources of Black and brown folks who can help your clients or help your listeners.
Yes.
That's so incredible. And then that does build your network, right? To like, hey, there are lots of us.
1000%. It's so interesting, like when you put out episodes and like people that like respond back, you're like, you listen to my podcast? Thank you. I appreciate that. It's so funny. And it's interesting the episodes that people listen to and reach out to. Like I had an episode where I interviewed Alesia, her a doula from South Georgia, like in a rural health desert. And like I got so much feedback on that from a pelvic floor therapist in California to a doula. And I have so many other amazing podcast episodes that I've been recording. That's why I'm like, I need a break. These is I'm tired from someone who is experiencing postpartum and they moved abroad with their partner. And what's it like being abroad postpartum with their partner, to I'm in an interracial relationship and I'm just like, I want more information on this, to interviewing a therapist that specializes in multiracial families and getting their conversations with that. Like those as I'm going through the journey myself and I'm asking questions. I'm not seeing
I'm
not seeing the answer. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna ask my questions. I'm gonna get it on my podcast. And I'm going to network and contribute and do the things and be a part of the conversation.
Oh, I love it so much. So you are going to be part of a Podathon in March. Yes. And so I want to make sure that we do highlight that because it's for a good cause. And this episode will be out, but well before then. So everyone who's listening, please go make sure that you check out the Podathon. When is it? What is it about? And how can we maybe support that as you do that?
So the Podathon is from March 14th to March 20th. We basically pick a nonprofit organization and recognize it on our podcast for that particular episode. I have picked the Preeclampsia Foundation. Full transparency, I got diagnosed with high blood pressure about 2 years ago. So it was a chronic disorder for me. And so that's something I'm going through on my pregnancy journey of just what are the possibilities of what things could happen? And preeclampsia popped up. And I'm just like, okay. And as I'm doing more research and everything, I got in contact with someone from the Preeclampsia Foundation who happened to be a FAMU alumnus.
Love it.
And we got connected, and they connected me with a Take 10 ambassador, Portia, who's also had preeclampsia, and like listening to her story was so inspiring. And they were so sweet. Preeclampsia Foundation, they gave pamphlets for the climb, but just bringing awareness. They opened a registry. So I just want to bring more awareness because preeclampsia, even though not a lot of research has been done on it, it's leaning towards preeclampsia as one of the top 5 concerns postpartum, and that is overlooked. because women aren't checking their blood pressure, or it's people, I think we talked about it earlier, where they like expect women to kind of like, you're postpartum, you're fine. Where I'm like, swollen legs, swollen face, headaches, blurry vision, all those things are not normal.
Right.
Go to the doctor. And if the doctor says no, keep going to a different doctor until it's fixed, because that could be postpartum preeclampsia. And I'm excited for this episode because I'm reaching back out to the Preeclampsia Foundation to partner with them. I have some family members that are going to be on the podcast to talk about their preeclampsia stories. So I just want to keep bringing awareness to that postpartum period, that there are things out there that do impact your pregnancy. You are not alone. And it's okay to ask for help. And the Preeclampsia Foundation has amazing resources like for like blood pressure cuffs and all of those things.
Awesome. So everybody definitely put that on your calendar. Go subscribe to Brittany's podcast so you can make sure you get that notification. Whatever you got to do to remind yourself. And we'll be posting about it on our socials during that time as well to help push that, because what you're doing is so incredible. So if people are like, yes, I need more Brittany, where can they find you, get to know you, lightly socially stalk you if necessary?
So my personal one is FL_classy. I made it in college and it's not leaving.
Love it.
And then my business on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok is PVF_tribe. So the PVF tribe. Keep an eye out for all of the podcast interviews. And I'm starting like my little health coaching and a little bit of fitness assessments in 2026. So keep an eye out on the socials for that, for promotions where if you do want to work with me in your postpartum period, your pregnant period, I will be here for you.
Awesome.
Or if you want to listen to the podcast, I will also be here for you.
Yes, so good. And it's such a necessary service. I think that societally, especially in the United States, we don't care enough for our pregnant folks. So
we don't at all.
Yeah. Definitely get the support you need. Brittany, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. And to everybody, I know this is coming out in January. Happy holidays and be safe, and a happy 2026 if you're listening in the future.
Yes.